Once again, welcome to our channel, which goes by the name of Tinga Tinga Africana, and together, me and you, let us pass through the analysis and review of the poem which goes by the name of Double Beating, written by Richard S Mabala. If you would like the analysis and review in Kiswahili language, please check the video next after this one on our channel, and so you shall be saved with the analysis and review of this poem in very simple Kiswahili language. And so on this video we shall continue with English language, and we shall start first by reading and interpreting the lines between this poem and then go to the analysis. And starting by reading and interpreting the poem, we may go like this. My neighbors gather round, listen to my cry, and tell me please, when the hammer pounds the nail, and the nail bites mercilessly into the wood, who is the wood to blame? So here is like someone asking the neighbors who has came to witness something, maybe to the house. So she is asking the neighbors that if the hammer hit the nail, and the nail go and hit the nail go, maybe hits or maybe bites the wood, so who is the wood to blame? And so she says, you saw today my husband beat me. You have seen today my husband was beating me, she tells her neighbors. So we come to realization that the one speaking in this poem is a woman, as she says, or she tells the neighbors that you saw today my husband beat me till the blood spurted angrily. So the blood came out of her body while she was beaten. To the ground, only then did you, my neighbors, rush in to separate us. So she is telling her neighbors that who is the wood to blame when the hammer has hit the nail and the nail bites the wood. So she is the wood, and maybe her husband is the nail. So we are into confusion, we don't know yet. So what has hit her husband at the extent of maybe biting her, as her husband here we come to realization that is being referred as the nail. So on this second stanza, you saw today my husband beat me till the blood spurted angrily to the ground, only then did you, my neighbors, rush to separate us. And the next stanza, that is third stanza, my fault, I only asked him so meekly, I assure you, that she has asked her husband with pleasable manner, so meekly, whether at last he had brought home the cotton money. Haven't we all waited 3 months to be paid, 3 months without washing my kanga, in case it is threadbare shell crumbles to nothingness. So she is explaining here like they have waited for the money for so long, and she was now asking her husband whether he has came with the cotton money, maybe from the place where they have sold the cotton. And you see, she is asking like as they have been waiting for the money for so long, as they don't even they haven't even bought a new clothes for them. They haven't even bought anything. So she explains here her kanga has worn away, has worn through, so it is over, it's almost in particles, so she cannot consider it to be a cloth anymore. So she's asking maybe if they have that money, so that maybe she could buy those needs which she has. So she continues stating that they have waited for the money for 3 months. And so she continues on this third stanza, because my daughter's skirt is now too short to cover her budding youth, 3 months of fertile hope and money spent in dreams. So she even explains that they even didn't buy school uniform for their kids, as they now don't go to school. They are hiding their children from school, since, for example, her daughter skirt is now too short to cover her body. So she continues on fourth stanza as she says, "Today, you know it, my neighbors, weren't we promised? And so when he, my husband, strode through the door, I only asked, I was so foolish. I failed to see the telltale bitter lines around the mouth, and the blow furrowed in frustration." So she's asking, like, on fourth stanza, she's saying, or she's asking that they were promised to be given the money on this particular day, and so when her husband getting through the door, strode through the door, she asked her husband that, "Hey, have you come with the money?" And she thinks she was so foolish to ask the question, as already her husband was already with bitter lines around the mouth, so he was already furious before asked the question. So the fifth stanza goes like, "Innocent question punished, for only I could relieve his pain, only I could lance the throbbing boil of resentment." So her husband, instead, maybe as he was very angry, so he chose to beat his wife, so that maybe to release his pain, to release his anger. So you see, as the wife says, "Innocent question punished, for only I could relieve his pain." So if you go to the sixth stanza, you see she says, "Blindly he hit me, eyes closed, releasing the squashed anger within his breast, muttering oaths against the world that has wronged him. Still no kanga, no uniform, come against next week." So as she's being beaten by her husband is muttering the oath against the world that has wronged him. So the husband is muttering these words, "Still no kanga, no uniforms, come again next week." So he is angry as he was asked that question, and he released his anger through beating his wife. So you can see he muttered those words which has been told to the place where they have sold their cotton. And so on the last stanza, and that is the seventh stanza, "That's how it was, my neighbors. But tell me, please, when the hammer points the nail and the nail bites into the wood, who is the wood to blame?" So she asks that who must she maybe blame? Must she blame her husband for beating her, or maybe must she blame the company the company that had taken the cotton without paying them the money for the beating she has received? So you can see, like, the main idea on this poem is portraying all the hardship which Africans are passing through on cultivating cash crops. You see, and at most in Africa, these cash crops, people were forced to produce them, and so according to their business structure, those who cultivate them, they have to sell to the big companies, to the bigger companies, of which they shall pay them on time. You can see, like, the payments have been postponed for so long, and so it brings conflicts into the society. And going directly into introduction of the poem as we start analyzing it, this poem is written by Richard S Mabala, and it talks about a woman who complains because of being beaten by her husband simply because she had asked whether he had brought home the cotton money. Moreover, you can see the poet talks about double beating in a sense that there are people who transfer their anger to the inferior whenever annoyed by the superior. As you can see in the poem, the man becomes angry because the company has not paid him the cotton money, and so, but he refers his wrath to his wife, who asks him meekly, pleasantly, with pleasurable manner, whether he has brought the money home, and as they were promised last week. So you can see This poem is all about a woman who complains because of being beaten by her husband, and symbolically this woman symbolizes African minority, African lower classes, which receive punishment by their superior, who has been maybe annoyed by their superior ones. You can see this poem is like that. Onto the thematic analysis, you can see we have several themes presented in the poem, and the first, it is poverty. The poem presents a peasant family that depends on cotton farming for survival, and so the hungry man is an angry man. You can see the hungry man is an angry man. Both the wife and her husband are unhappy due to poor life they are living, and the fact that their only means of income is cultivating of cotton. They depend on the money of for food, clothes, school uniforms, and all the other needs of the family. So the failure to get the money on time implies announcing a doom to them, or maybe it's announced the torture condition to them. Very poor, miserable life, miserable situation to them. While they wait for money, optimistically, there comes a pessimistic answer, that they wait the money hopefully, but they are always being given negative answers, which again maybe distract their hope, and that the answer is very short and clear: come again next week. Look at the following lines in the poem. They say, 3 months without washing my kanga, 3 months of hiding my children from school, because my daughter's skirt is now too short. You can see this. People keep waiting for their money, and they starve. They live such miserable life, but they have their money being kept by the companies which has taken their cotton. The company buying cotton has not paid their money, but keeps on giving them fake promises. Still no kanga, no uniform, came again next week. Those lines may prove that. The second theme, it is spouse beating. You can see in most African societies, women are beaten as a way of silencing them, even when they seem to ask some logical questions about critical issues. As you can see, those maybe critical issues sometimes may be affecting their lives, and so they cannot keep quiet on them. They have to ask, so that maybe to be given some right direction, maybe if there is or there is not there is not hope, so they must kindly be answered. So you can see, instead of giving them proper answers, men in Africa used to beat their wives in a way of silencing them, as a way of silencing them. So the woman in the poem is beaten by her husband simply because she has asked an innocent question whether the money they have been waiting for 3 months to buy their needs have been paid at last or not. So you can see from the poem the lines which say, my fault, I only ask him so meekly, I assure you, whether at last he had brought home the cotton money. You can see those lines prove that this woman was very logical and about a very critical issue. Another theme, it is classes. You can see the theme doesn't appear at the surface. Nevertheless, we cannot ignore the fact that there are classes in the society. On one side there is high class, and that owns money, and there is a lower class of peasants. But these people, those who have money, they don't pay the lower class. Instead, they give them some fake promises. You can see we are being brought to one class of lower people, and we cannot ignore the higher class who are denying, who are delaying, who are not paying these lower class their money. So on the other side, there is a proletariat class comprising mainly of peasants. There are other ones suffering. These are the ones who are suffering and find it hard to get their daily bread apart from that higher class. So you can see from the poem the lines which say, 3 months without washing my kanga. In case it is threadbare shell, crumbles to nothing less. 3 months of hiding the children from the school. So This woman is afraid of washing her kanga as she thinks maybe it might turn apart then and she might not have anything to wear again. And you can see there is a theme of cooperation. You can see the community seem to have cooperative life, just how they live most of other rural African communities. You can see it is important to get along with people, that is neighbors, so that when we have a problem they may come for you for rescue. You can see here this woman was being beaten, and you see she's saying that only then did my neighbors rush in to separate us. So neighbors came to separate them as she was being beaten by her husband. That is a theme of cooperation being presented by that action. And another theme, there is a theme of irresponsibility. You can see the ruling class presented in the poem. It is irresponsible for providing services on time. You can see the farmers have sold their cotton to the company, but they are not given the money on time. This makes poor farmers live a miserable life. They cannot afford to buy new clothes and wash their clothes. Even the children fail to go to school just because of that. And even you can see even when they go again and again, they are being given the one sentence answer that come again next week. In this acting, that results to family conflicts. And the other very important theme, it is family conflict. The poet discusses the problem of family conflict in African families, but he discusses it from a different angle. In this poem, he shows that the source of conflicts may not necessarily come from within, and so the source comes from outside. There are times when a husband is annoyed by someone, but he cannot fight against the person or system because it is superior to him. As a result, he shifts his anger to his wife or to the family. This is a concept of double beating as presented in the poem. The woman says, when the hammer points the nail and the nail bites into the wood, who is the wood to blame? And if we move to this other part of analysis, that is guiding questions. Guiding questions on this poem, we might have the following guiding questions, and so I shall provide you with the answers. The first guiding question, how many stanzas are there? Yes, the poem has got 7 stanzas. You can see we have first stanza, we are being exposed to the conflict. You can see to the second stanza, we are being brought onto awareness, that is a wife being beaten by her husband. And you can see on the third stanza, we are being brought to the source of the conflict which has been introduced. And on the fourth stanza, we are being taken to the other idea of asking who is to the idea of the promise which they have been given so much. Come next week, come next week. That's another idea. Procrastination of those who has taken their cotton. And you see on the rest, that is fifth, 6th and 7th stanza, it is just a question, it's just a matter of question of asking who is to blame. And so you can see, as you can see, the woman continues to receive the punishment. And the other question, which may act as a guiding question, explain the mood and the tone of the poem. The tone of the poem, it is sad or unhappy. As you can see, the woman is lamenting, and so it creates a sympathetic mood. You can see as you read the poem, you sympathize to the woman who is being beaten. And if you shall be asked how many verses are in the poem, the very correct answer, it is 63 verses. You can see some people get hard to count these verses due to resources which they have, from the resources from which they recite these poems. So according to the very origin source, the verses found on the stanza are 63. And who is the persona? Who do you how do you know who is the persona, and how do you know? The persona is a woman who is oppressed by her husband. This is evident as she says, today my husband beat me. You can see that line is found on the poem in that stanza. That is second stanza. She says like, my husband, today my husband beat me. Thus we know the persona is a woman. And so, is a persona happy in the poem? Give two reasons. No, the persona is not happy, so she is unhappy in this poem, because first, she has been beaten, and second, she is in a state of poverty, and the fact that their cotton money has not been paid. They are just given fake promises, come again next week, every time when they go to take their money. And so, what is the message in the poem? The message, the very big message which I can see in the poem, it is that it's not good to shift your anger to someone who has not wronged you. And so suppose beating is illogical, because you can see you are beating, someone may be beating his wife just because someone has wronged him. And you see, is that correct, that to beat the other one who has not wronged you, my friend? That is like taking the law on by your hand. That's not allowed, my friend, and it is against human rights. And you can see the other message we get from the poem: leaders shall be responsible in providing services to the citizen. The other guiding question, what type of the poem is it? The poem, it is free verse modern poem, but specifically it is a narrative poem. So we have two ways of classifying these kinds or types of poems: by using their form and also by using their content. By using the form, it is free verse modern poem, and by using the content presented in it, it is a narrative poem. And comment on the rhyming pattern. The poem has irregular rhyming, and the relevant of the poem, that's another guiding question. What is the relevant of the poem? The relevant, the poem is generally relevant to our society. As you can see, things like suppose beating, issues of poverty. There are people who depends solely on agriculture for survival, and when the markets collapse, they collapse as well. So you can see through those presented issues, you can see the poem found to be relevant. And also comment on the language used. The language is generally very simple, but has the following figures of speech. The first figure of speech which can be seen in the poem, it is rhetorical question. Rhetorical question can be seen very much in this poem, as nearly all the questions asked in the poem are not intended to seek the answers. For example, the question is, my fault, who is the wood to blame? Those two questions. My fault, is it my fault? My fault, sure. You see that my fault is a rhetorical question. And we have another figure of speech, that is anaphora. Anaphora, you can see it is starting with the alike words on consecutive sentences, and you can see 3 months to be paid, 3 months without washing my kanga. The repetition of the word 3 months at the beginning of consecutive sentences, that is anaphora. And we have barbarism. Barbarism, because we have mixed the words of the different language in this poem, which is originally written in English language. You can see words like kanga, that is a Swahili word, so that is barbarism. Another figure of speech we have, it is personification. Personification can be seen there when the woman is explaining how she was beaten, and she says like, the blood spurted angrily to the ground. The blood spurted. You can see the blood has been given a human ability to spurt. And another, innocent question punished. You can see here when she's explaining, after asking the question, and she says innocent question punished. So the innocent question has been punished, and you cannot punish the question. That is personification. And also we have the world that had wronged him. The world is a thing, is a non-living thing, and is a non-human thing, so has been given the ability to wrong someone. The world that had wronged him. Who is the wood to blame is another question which has been asked nearly to every end of the stanza, and the wood cannot be blamed as it is a non-human thing. And also we go to the other figure of speech, that is we have sayings and we have alliteration. For example, sayings can be found when the hammer points the nail and the nail bites the wood. That's a say which is very famous on our contemporary African society. Who is the wood to blame, my friend? If the nail bites the wood, then maybe the wood shall blame the hammer. You can see, you cannot blame someone who has beaten you by being caused to do so by the other different person. The last figure of speech is alliteration. Alliteration can be found as when the persona says, and the bro furrowed in frustration. The bro furrowed in frustration. So that's the word furrowed and frustration. The repetition of FF, that's alliteration.